Hey yo everybody, it's Maximilian again, and we're actually doing stuff in this episode. And by doing stuff, I mean stuff that's relevant to the plot. We're actually getting our first taste of Team Rocket. Ooh, yeah, you've been waiting for that one. And then we've also get to fight another gym leader today, so multitasking to the extreme. Before you can actually do anything, though, you need to talk to this guy, Kurt, I think is his name. Starts with a K. Oh well, we'll call him Mr. K. Anywho, if you talk to him, you can set off a little bit of chain of events here, which you have to do before you can actually progress any farther in the game. This is actually the guy that makes balls for you out of apricorns. You can find a bunch of trees that look like the ones that drop berries, but they actually drop apricorns instead. These make special kinds of Pokeballs that you can use in certain situations to improve your catch rate, but most of them really aren't that good. They're more like a novelty kind of thing. Although if you are going to take the purist route and catch things like Entei, Suicune, and Raikou, using the way that the game intended for you to catch them, you will need him to make you some speed balls. Although I think what I may just end up doing is using the Pokemon box glitch and cloning some Master Balls. Because that'd just be much easier in general. Because not only do you not ever run into them, like ever, but when you actually do, they pretty much run away instantly. So catching them is a bit of a nuisance to say the least. If you go down this little well thing that a rocket guy was guarding earlier, you'll notice that he fell down the well because he's clumsy and old. And that's why you don't let adults handle situations like this. That's why you give animals to kids and have them fight with them. Yeah. Go down the well. There's a bunch of Slowpokes in here, but I really don't care for them. They're not terribly great in this game, and really the only reason to go down here is to fight the 4 or 5 rocket trainers that are down here. Not sure how many. But as per usual, the rocket grunts always have the same Pokemon. The really worthless, weak Rattata Zubat combo. There's maybe like an occasional Ekans in there, but there's really nothing of too much variety. Just kill them however you feel like it. I wouldn't recommend using Ghastly though, just because I found out recently, at least from my playing experience, that Ghost-type moves don't affect Normal-type Pokemon in this game, which I found really bizarre. I'm not sure why, but whatever. So Ghastly's probably not going to do a whole lot. If you want to raise him though, just go ahead and do the whole bait-and-switch technique that you grew so fond of in Red and Blue. Although Rare Candies would probably be a bit more fond of, but this is your primary raising technique in Silver and Gold, seeing as how you don't have that many Rare Candies at your disposal. So, fight all of them, use whoever you want. I'm a bit partial to Quilava now, since he's growing ever so much more badass as the days go on, and he grows levels. That's just my opinion, though. I'm a Fire-type kind of guy. Been a fire guy at heart ever since I pretty much started playing Pokemon, so that's just my personal preference. Although, I do have to say, once Totodile learns Water Gun, he becomes a lot better. Although, considering that all your Pokemon are still fairly basic types, you don't really have anything that can typecast too well against a rocket guy, so just throw out whatever is most powerful. Not really much to it. I mean, they're rockets. They're supposed to be easy. Well, I guess they're not supposed to be easy, because technically that would defeat the point. If you're some kind of mastermind of a mafia organization, you don't exactly want your henchmen to be bad at their job. I guess they didn't really think that through too well now, did they? Sucks to be them. So just go ahead and kill all the rocket dudes. There's not much set there. This'll take a little while, because you do occasionally run into wild Pokemon in the well. And yes, there are Zubats down there. So it may take you some time. Who knows? It didn't take me too long, but plow your way through it. Eventually you'll get to the next step. Until we get to the next step, though, let's talk about something else. I have been studying quite a bit recently. I got a bit of a break in my schedule, so I've been kind of taking it easy. But I'm still a little bit concerned for final exams, just because, number one, I have to do an oral Japanese exam, which I know is going to be difficult. It's a little bit different when you have like the language knowledge of a 5-year-old, and you're talking with somebody who's well into their age. Like I think she's in her 60s, and she's fluent in Japanese. So it's a bit different because you're trying to get on her level, but at the same time you know that you're just not even close. It's like it's a humbling experience. It's very different. Like if you've ever been in another country where people don't speak the same language, there's a huge barrier between you two, and you just feel like you're hopeless to try and communicate with them. Like right now, I'm just really hoping I don't screw anything up. I'm going to be studying and practicing with the other students in the class as much as I can, but I don't know. We're going to see how this goes, because I'm not entirely sure how well I did on the writing exam. Like, I know I misspelled a few words. I'm pretty sure some of my sentences didn't make any sense. but I'm hoping I did enough to get by. Because it's hard learning a new language, especially when it's one that requires a new alphabet and a different set of roots entirely. Because the Oriental languages aren't based on Latin and Greek like most of our like our Anglo-Saxon, European, Western languages are. Like if you have any kind of foundation in Latin or English, you can pretty much learn languages like Spanish and French or even German and Italian without too much difficulty. They also share the same alphabet too, so if you do want to go actually read the alphabet, if you just need to read something out loud, it's not that big of a deal. Whereas the Oriental languages all have their own unique alphabets, and in addition to that, in addition to the characters for their alphabets, they also have completely different ways of forming words. Some of them have tones, some of them don't. Some of them have very odd grammar structures. Japanese grammar structure is actually very similar to that of Yoda. I guess that's the closest comparison I can make, but even then it's not really quite that. It's something really different. Like you start off with a subject, but you end with a verb and place your objects and adverbs in between in a particular order with and they have particles which inference or reference rather which parts of the sentence are the subject, the verb, and the objects, etc. So it's really complicated because it's like trying to think out of the box for the first time. It's something completely different. It's like that transition when you go from your basic standard algebra and geometry and whatever, going from your basic knowledge of math into calculus. Because for the first time, you're actually thinking of things outside of a finite scope. Like, you don't actually know what it means to perceive things in terms of infinity. Like approaching limits and minimum and maximum, things like that. They're difficult concepts when you first grasp them, so it takes a while. It's a long learning experience. So it's been fairly difficult for me to learn this language, even like I do have like a bit of a knack for picking up foreign languages, at least whenever someone actually takes the time to teach me, that is. Like I couldn't probably just go buy a German textbook and pick up German if I wanted to. Like if I have an instructor, I can usually pick up what they're saying. But since I have to learn a new alphabet, a new grammar system, and a new vocabulary on top of all that, it's a daunting task. So I'm going to try my best. I don't know. I think I want to pursue Japanese potentially later, even though my school doesn't offer it as a language. Just kind of like a side hobby of mine to learn it, because it's a fascinating language, and considering that I'm going into some kind of technology-related field. I'm a computer science major, if you didn't know. I'd figured that it would be nice to know a language in which a country like Japan can relate to us, because we basically share like I guess what you could call the technological forefront of society. Like the Japanese have been known to innovate some of the most ridiculous products in the world, pretty much what seemed to be years ahead of time. Like the Asimo robot that was developed by Honda and things like that. Japanese are crazy when it comes to technology and work ethic. So, if nothing else, it should at least help me a little bit, or if I ever want to take a vacation to Tokyo, or Kyoto, or Osaka, somewhere in Japan, at least I'd have enough to get me by, because from what I understand, almost nobody speaks English in Japan. It's a little bit different being in Hong Kong, because they had a British background in the fact that the British conquests and their presence in here for about a century and a half kind of brought English to the people. So they were essentially forced to learn it, in a manner of speaking. So at least some people have a bit of background since it's an official language in Hong Kong, but in places like China and Japan, in the mainland, they don't speak any English at all because they've had no Western influence like Hong Kong has, or not nearly as much anyway. So it's going to be a bit different. That's just my thoughts on the matter. Now that you've actually taken care of the Slowpoke well, we're going to go back to what we're doing next. I'm going to heal my Pokemon and we're going to fight the gym leader, so aptly named Bugsy, and if you couldn't tell, she uses bug Pokemon. Gee, what a conclusion that must have been to come to. It's so creative in their naming too. Like that's something I've noticed as you progress through these Pokemon games. The names for the gym leaders and the Pokemon get just so much more noticeably, I guess the word is uncreative. I have no idea. But they just don't seem to have that same knack that they used to, the originality. It's just like they're not even trying anymore. Although I guess once you've come up with that many Pokemon and that many gym leaders and that many games, I mean, at some point your creative spark has to run out. This game came out, 12 years ago when they first started Pokemon? At least in the US. It must have been like 15 years ago if you want to count all the way back to when it originated in Japan. So I guess you could say that, but I mean, come on. you could try better than Bugsy. At least give her something cool. Like, even Falconer was kind of interesting because the word itself is actually a derivative of the word falconer, which, as you probably could tell, is one who raises and trains falcons. Consequently, the name Falconer, even though it's technically not spelled the same, is also the name of a famous early 20th century author. But we won't get into that because I really don't like Falconer's writing. If you've ever read The Sound and the Fury, and I sincerely hope you haven't, you probably won't anyway unless you're taking like any advanced grammar or literature courses. But if you have, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We'll leave it at that. If you're really curious, go ahead and look it up. But I won't force you to do so. And I actually recommend that you don't. Just look up what it's about, and maybe you'll get a gist of it. But if you've ever heard of a stream of consciousness, that type of novel where you're actually reading from the mindset of the characters, try to imagine reading the stream of consciousness from a person who's mentally handicapped and in his 30s still living with his mother. That is an experience. Not an experience worth mentioning, though. Definitely wasn't fun. Then it also could have been the fact that I was required to read it for a class, and when you're pretty much required to read anything for a class, it's going to suck, regardless of whether or not the book is good. You just seem to have that mentality in the back of your mind, like, oh gosh, I have to read this. This is terrible. Because it's such a negative experience in your mind. So even if you're reading something awesome, like The Lord of the Rings, you could probably perceive it as bad just because you were forced to read it, so you have that negative connotation of, oh, this is a homework assignment. I don't want to be doing this. So I generally don't like it when I get reading assignments because it takes away from, I guess, what we should call the pleasure of reading. Although I do have to say, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't enjoy The Sound and the Fury anyway. It's just a terrible book. There are those who disagree with me, but then again, opinion isn't fact. It is opinion for a reason. So that is just my opinion on the book. I don't like it. Who knows? One of you might, but I wouldn't recommend it. Anywho, bug Pokemon are notably weak to fire, obviously, especially Paris, since he also has a grass subtype. Although I didn't want to focus entirely on raising my Quilava because there's actually quite a few trainers in here, and using him solely for every single one of them would have put a huge level gap in between my party. And even though it's slightly difficult, like especially with Chikorita, I'm trying to raise my Pokemon evenly, but even though it's a bit of a handicap, I will try my best to, I guess, give all of them a little bit of equal battle time, even when it wouldn't make sense to do so. That's just something that I do. It's just my strategy with how I've come to play the game. Because when I first got the game, I didn't understand the whole concept of raising Pokemon evenly. Like, I'm pretty sure nobody else did. Even though the guidebook said, like, you really should raise Pokemon evenly. It actually is good for your party. And I'm like, nah, whatever. I'm going to get this guy to a Charizard as quickly as humanly possible. But when you've got, like, a level 30 Charizard that happens to Keel by some stroke of events in battle, and all you have are a bunch of level 3 Pidgeys and Rattatas in your team, then you're screwed. It's nice to have a bit of a contingency in Pokemon, and when you raise them evenly, and frequently as well, you end up having a really strong team that's resilient to anything that can be thrown at them, even when they're slightly higher levels. So that's why I try to raise Chikorita, even though, technically speaking, this is probably the worst gym that I could possibly put her in. Except for the Ice Gym. The Ice Gym is definitely the worst. Like, I probably wouldn't even think about using Chikorita in that gym. But in this one, we could scoop by. Because even though these are bug Pokemon, they don't really know bug-type casting moves. And even when they do, they're notably weak. So it doesn't really matter. That and Totodile cleans up on bugs anyway, since bug-type effects aren't notably... I guess word right there isn't notably, they just aren't. They aren't super effective against water types. And even then, bug Pokemon don't really have that high of an attack stat. So Totodile will just kick their butt anyway. Although this Beedrill gave me a bit of a run for my money. I was quite surprised at how strong it was. That's okay though, we got Totodile and he knows Water Gun, which is greater than Fury Attack any day. Although I have to say, this guy had the most nutty Fury Attacks ever. He was hitting for like 4 and 5 every single time he threw it, except for maybe once. I never get that kind of luck with Fury Attack, which is basically why I hate any kind of move that has that variable hit ratio where you're like, oh, well, this could hit for up to 5 times, but it could also hit for only 2, in which case you're screwed. I never really was a huge fan of those. Some people, like, I know we're huge advocates of things like Fury Attack and Fury Swipes and things like that, but I never bothered with it. I like consistency. I like knowing what's going to happen. So I'm very picky when I choose moves for Pokemon. And that's also why I think I chose to forget Poison Powder. Like, in theory, it's a good move because it gives them a status ailment, so it'll weaken them a little bit. But you're wasting a whole turn to do it, and you could be doing them more damage than that Poison Powder will end up doing anyway. Plus, there's much better Spore-esque moves, I guess. I don't know what you would call it. There's the 3 Spore moves, Poison Powder, Stun Spore, and Sleep Powder. The latter 2 are much better than Poison Powder, and at the moment there's no reason to give Chikorita another status ailment move anyway. So I just figured we might as well leave it as is. I could probably see learning Sleep Powder. That's really the only one that I can think of because it absolutely shuts them out. Like, Poison Powder just only slightly damages them, whereas Stun Spore, it's kind of like a semi-sleep state. They have a chance of not being able to do anything, but they can still do stuff. So it's just not very cost effective, so to speak. Like, if I want any kind of status ailment, it better be sleeping, because that way I know for a fact they're going to be out for at least a turn or two. So it's like jumping ahead of them 2 turns, which is completely unfair in Pokemon when you're on equal levels. So that's why I don't generally advocate using those moves, and I probably won't teach them to any of my Pokemon. Now, when you get to the actual gym leader, her Pokemon are really easy, seeing as how 2 of them only know Harden, and Scyther is just more intimidating than he is actually effective. Although, I would be aware of Fury Cutter. If the battle drags on too long, that thing will just get obscenely powerful. So I would recommend just going all out and using a Fire Pokemon on him, just because you don't want to take any chances. It could wreak havoc on your party because it does get stronger as the battle continues. But if you're using Quilava, you're pretty much guaranteed to win anyway, so just go ahead and take the easy way out, play it safe there. Wouldn't hurt to do so. Plus, you won't give you too much of a level gap anyway. At a level gap, you can usually make up, like, 2 levels is no big deal. But, like, if I were to use them for the whole gym, like 4 or 5 levels, that would actually be noticeable. So I didn't want to get too far ahead with him. Anywho, next episode, we're going to proceed, I believe, to the next town. We may encounter a forest along the way. I can't remember, but I will tell you later when we get there. Alright, this is Maximilian, guys. See you later.